Okay, I have 4 o'clock. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
All right, well, we'll call the August 20th, 2020 City Council Budget Workshop to order. Ms. Sykes, please call the roll, please.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Hill? Mr. Hill?
You might be muted.
Okay, I do see him.
Here.
Yes. Mr. Jefferson?
Here.
Ms. Moses?
Here.
Mayor Witt?
Here.
Overlarn?
Here.
Mr. Helpenberger?
Here.
Keith Gilmore? Here.
Okay, first of all, before we start into the budget, I talked to Jake this morning and he had an announcement. You want to tell him, Jake?
Yes, I got reelected. Of course, everybody knows, to the council. And prior to getting reelected, I was also elected to the Florida League of Cities Board of Directors for 2021.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Jake.
Thank you.
Wow.
Great honor.
Thank you, Melinda.
You're welcome.
So that's good news to start it out. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Helfenberger to continue our budget meetings.
Okay, we're going to pick up right where on page 39 with the police department. What I'd like to do, there's a couple items that I wanted to draw to your attention, but before I get into all these little things, we're so technology driven that I would like Chief Butler to give us a little overview of how the technology is integrated in the police department budget, because that's driving a lot of the cost.
Go ahead, Chief Butler.
Okay, thank you. One of the issues that we have going right now is our co-ban in-car camera and body camera systems. The way the system is set up, the lifespan of the equipment is 5 years, which is also the lease terms in the patrol cars. So as the patrol cars leases expire, the in-car camera equipment in the vehicle is also at end of life. We worked with IT, and we also look to increase technology to improve the system. Motorola bought WatchGuard, which is a system we previously used. They have a lease program for the equipment. It's a 6-year lease. However, year 1 of the lease, which would be the next fiscal year, we do not have to make any payments. The following fiscal year, starting in 2021, we would have to make 5 lease payments of $94,122 a year. Now, with that amount, a lot of our equipment, the body cameras, are already at end of life. One of the pluses on the WatchGuard system is the equipment is warranted for 5 years. So that works out for us. The current co-ban system, if we continue with it, next year I was talking with IT for new in-car cameras to replace the vehicles that are coming in, including modems for the cars, which we would need, and the maintenance. We're looking somewhere in the area of $99,000. That does not include replacing any of the body cameras, which again are already at the end of life. Each unit is approximately $1,300 with a 3-year warranty. So actually the amount that we're going to be spending for brand new equipment is comparable. With the body camera, one of the issues we have with our current system is that the battery is incorporated into the unit itself. And if the body camera goes dead, then the officer has to either try and come in and get a spare, which is difficult, or go the rest of the shift without. The new system that WatchGuard has, we can change the battery on the body camera just like we do our portable radios. And this is important because with the WatchGuard system that we're asking you to let us get, when the in-car camera activates through Bluetooth, it automatically activates the body camera that the officer is wearing. As you know, if we show up to an emergency scene and the officers have to jump out of the car quickly, sometimes they don't have time to activate the camera. this would go a long way to alleviating that problem. Thank you.
Okay, so basically you won't see a cost for this item in this proposed budget for fiscal year 2021. However, if we don't go with this system, which you'd have to commit to starting with this next budget for the 6 years, we would have to add back about $70,000 in that line. And this next budget year, we don't have to put any cost down. The overall increase to go with the new equipment over the old for the 6-year period is $55,000 approximately, but it also cures some other problems we have with IT. So that would otherwise come under rentals and leases, but that's able to be reduced this year because we have the first year we do not have to make a payment. One other thing I'd like to point out on this page is the training item. We have to add in $5,787 for background investigation training. That was not in there. We also put the travel budget at 0 for using property taxes. We will be looking to, if they have travel needs, that will be through the normal travel approval process with forfeiture funds that can only be used for special things. And one of them is some of the travel that the police might have to have for any specialized training. Where possible, we're looking to try to have in-house training on site so that we can take advantage of that for example, we have an item later on in the budget under the training budget for diversity, implicit bias, and de-escalation training. We're looking to get an expert to come in to be able to conduct this training and be able to have all city employees take advantage of the training, and that would be coordinated also with HR. There may be some additional training the officers will have to have, but some of the training could be applicable to all city employees. One other thing I would like to draw to your attention is under capital outlay, machinery and equipment. We have a one-time expense for the PSAP, Annie and Allie for the 9/11 upgrade for the comm center. The total cost is $125,000 for 5 workstations. 3 of the workstations are planned to be purchased by the police department. 2 of the workstations are planned to be paid by the fire department. This will allow for a lot faster dispatch and a number of other benefits as far as being able to have emergency communication on a very timely basis. Currently, you can have calls dropped easily, and this goes a step closer to having certainty of communication. If Chief or Assistant Chief would like to talk at all on the PSAP, Annie and Allie, I would like to, if you have anything further to say on that, that's a major improvement on our dispatch system.
I'll go ahead and get started, and Chief Butler, if there's anything else to add to that. And I think that Chief Burnham can also attest to this as well. This is so critical to us to have, because before, when a call, whether it was a cell phone or whatever, and it dropped, and we did not have the information of the location of where that person was calling from. Annie Allen will now give us the exact location where that caller is calling from. That is critical to life-saving situations, critical for officers to get there. And also the good part about this as well is we will now know how many calls that we do have coming into the city. Before, we didn't have any of that information at our fingertips, I should say at our fingertips for our comm center to know. So this is critical. corresponding emergency situation and life-threatening situations, we now know the location and the phone number where that person is calling from. So this is very, very critical for us in the Annie Alley. Before, it was only the county had that information. Now that we're working together, we now both would have that information. Critical.
Okay. Okay, so if we can go back to the page 39. As far as the personnel costs, they are, the retirement contribution costs are going down about 88,000. The life, health, and disability is budgeted at the higher amount because when you have new hires, you do not know whether it's going to be a family or a single plan. Rentals and leases are going down primarily because we do not have to make a payment towards the watch guard or the co-ban. For actually, if we go with the watch guard, we do not have to make a payment. If we go with co-ban, we have to add $70,000 to that $269,000. Another area I wanted to concentrate on was rentals and leases on page 40. We have enterprise leases of 27 vehicles, and we have leases of replacing 6 currently owned vehicles. That's 33 vehicles. So one of the things, vehicles in the police department go through a lot more wear and tear than a lot of other departments by the nature of the work. So we're looking at and evaluating, again, with each decision, whether we continue to lease, whether we buy out leases at the end of the term, or whether we buy vehicles and we own the vehicle, and we're looking at that, which each and every decision with leased vehicles. But I wanted to draw, that's a very significant number there that I want to draw to your attention. A lot of the rest of it is been on the budget year after year. You have quite a few accounts for under the operating expense and supplies. You have quite a few different accounts for cleaning. I think they just broke it out for the contract for each area that they use it for. As you see, going through the budget, especially items under capital outlay, there's a lot of technology here that's a part of the whole operation. Any questions on the police department or anything that we've discussed? Or
I know when we first started the lease program many years ago, they didn't cover the police department because there were such different vehicles. And now, I guess we've been in the lease business with the police vehicles for a couple of years. I guess they have a higher mileage allowance and things like that than the other type vehicles.
I believe they have a little bit higher mileage. I don't know exactly how much it is.
Okay.
But every time we look at whether we're going to lease or not lease, we've got to look at the cost benefits. And should we decide to switch to more city-owned vehicles, you got to take a look at the use and everything. And with the police vehicles, if any is a candidate for leasing, it probably would be more police vehicles because of the extreme wear and tear they have versus a lot of the other vehicles.
I agree with that.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
We'll just stay on the leased vehicles for just 1 second. I remember this coming up in the budget last year, and I think we were all happy with the way that the city's vehicles are. I think last year it made sense to lease, and I think we'll probably look at it every year, and that's a good thing to do. My question is, so we have 27 lease vehicles. Are all 27 of those leases due this budget cycle? In other words, it's not, I would assume it would be spread over a 5-year term. So you would have a fifth, a fifth, a fifth. Could you speak to that a little bit, Chief?
Yes, we do try to put them on a cycle with them, but we try to do the 5 years and the 5 years because the equipment that is in there, we want them to be a part of it when it's get ready to lease out. I'm sorry, when the lease in is gone. So we got 5-year warranty on equipment. The vehicle is 5 years and that helps us with the rotation of that.
I see. So as I'm looking here, well, we have 30 something vehicles that's on here. So all 30 of those vehicles would be for the next 5 years. But next year, how many vehicles would we have coming up?
We have 27 currently that we're leasing. 3, if you look at your notes, we're replacing the currently ones that we have owned that we need
right.
end of life.
Well, some of these are in the middle of their lease terms. Some of them are, you know, they're staggered, but you have to show what the cost is going to be for the year for all the leased vehicles.
I see. So this isn't 5 years for each of the vehicles. This is 1 year for each of the vehicles.
Yes. Yes,
okay.
It is.
All right. That makes sense. The next question that I had concerning WatchGuard and co-band. So WatchGuard is the new item that we're wanting to go to, but that item was not put in the budget. Is that correct?
Okay. That item, if we go with that item, you're making a commitment for the next 6 years. Years 2 through 6, you have to make payments of $94,123. Year 1, you do not have to make a payment.
Right.
One of the things that is different with the co-ban is very narrow view of in front of the squad car. With the WatchGuard, you have a panoramic view and you can see everything on the sides of the vehicle as well as the front. And in a lot of tense situations, that may add a level of safety when you're looking at what's out there.
I see. So, Mr. Elfenberger, you're advocating for going with the WatchGuard, and that there's no cost this particular budget cycle, but there's a commitment of about $500,000 in future budget cycles, correct?
Correct, and that's why we wanted to draw that to your attention first, because you do not see it in this budget. But
right.
The commitment would have to be made now for the 6-year lease.
So that would be a 6-year lease, and then we have some of that's going to be on the vehicles as well. We'll have a 5-year lease on our vehicles, a 6-year lease on the WatchGuard.
Yes.
And currently we own co-band outright, correct? So when we buy a co-band unit, we just own it until it's no longer useful. Is that correct?
I'm not sure, but I do know that we'd have to add it back in about 70,000 if we would stick with the co-ban.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't know if co-ban was a lease or if it was a purchase.
All the co-ban equipment is a purchase, and normally in IT it's a little bit better with that. The 3-year lease warranties on the co-ban, and then the last couple of years basically it'd be time and material if we need to do a replacement. With the WatchGuard, even though it's a 5-year, WatchGuard will replace all the co-bans in the current vehicles. And then as we get new leases, we will send the old vehicle to our installer. They're WatchGuard certified. They will pull the WatchGuard out of the old vehicle and put it into the new vehicle. And
that makes sense. And then also you were saying that the WatchGuard will upgrade the body cams that are on officers too. Is that tied to the car? So in other words, when they get out of the car, the body cam kicks on?
Okay, there'll be 2 ways. If the in-car camera The in-car camera, if the officer turns on their overhead lights, if they open the back door to put a prisoner in, if they release the patrol rifle or the shotgun, the cameras automatically come on. Currently, the officer would have to physically turn on the body camera. With the new system, the watch guard, it is Bluetooth to the car, so the body camera will automatically come on. So it's one less step the officer has to have, and there's less chance of us having no video.
And is co-band a, I'm sorry for bouncing around, I'm just trying to educate myself here. Co-band, is that a $70,000 commitment per year if we stayed on that old system? In other words, would we have to replace $70,000 worth of co-band equipment every year?
Somewhere between 70 and 99,000, depending on what equipment and how many we had to buy. That also does not figure in the fact that the current body cameras are at end of life. And again, they're about 1,400 a pop, and we have 50 of them. So okay, we'll have to start replacing those in the near future also.
I see.
Just to be clear, let me just ask one quick question. Yeah. Just to be clear, it's second through the 6th year, so it's just 5 years. We would just be paying that $94,000 for 5 years, not 6, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then let's see, what else did I have on that? So that makes sense to me. The enterprise lease vehicles, I think that was one of the changes that made sense to me. The Annie and Alley, the 3 stations, $75,000. We currently don't have Annie and Alley for our PSAP.
Right.
The county, we're relying on the county, correct?
Yes, we are. The calls have to go through, they aren't as direct as they would be with the workstations. They aren't, so you have a much more direct call with the workstations. And then that makes sense. I'm just trying to hit all the items that you brought up, Mr. Helpenberger. So the diversity implicit bias training, $8,000. I know HR had a line item budget for, I believe HR called it citywide training. So this would be in addition to that, because I think maybe there's some topic overlap. Right, right. We're looking at bringing in one expert, having HR and the police coordinate it, because the police will have to have some additional training that the rest of the city staff might not need. But I believe that it'll be, this was talked about a lot over the year. We think that there's economies, there's efficiency and cost effectiveness by having a trainer come in-house and having the whole city take advantage of it. I see. So that's everything that you had brought up. I had a couple of other questions. I don't mean to hog the time, so my fellow council members can hop in. One of the line items that I seen was in the 52 account. It looks like the IT operating supplies, $10,000. Can you talk a little bit about that, Chief, and just educate me as to what that is?
There are some things that we sometimes need. I'm going to give over to Chief Butler too, because he's my IT liaison person for a police department. But there are times, sometimes we need things, whether it's battery, something falls apart or whatever, we need to go and purchase that. So we just need to make sure that we have the funds there to replace right then when we need those items. For the most part, the major part of our IT things that we need, I believe they're put into the IT budget, but we do have things that we might need that are smaller costs that we might get from Amazon, get somewhere else. So we do need to have an operating operating funds for those.
And IT does budget for your tough books, the laptop. So is that where that is? Or somewhere else? They're in there somewhere else. Are they in there somewhere else?
The tough books are under 6.64 capital outlay.
Okay, so the $10,000 is just for the minor items that come up. That's not necessarily rises to the level of IT.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then Chief, just a couple of quick questions, and I'll be off of here from other council members. with the current COVID situation, I know we're still budgeting for Breakfast with the Chief, which I think is a great program for community outreach. But I wanted to ask if we were still planning to do that this year. And then I seen also the Policeman's Ball, we're budgeting $25,600 for that. And so in the light of COVID, my question is the police department still planning on holding those events?
As soon as we feel that CDC has given us a green light on the social distancing and those kind of things for the next budget year, by May is normally when we have it. Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, let me add too that we do try to have a surplus on that as well. But and we're talking about May and down the road, and we definitely need those outreach, community outreach. So yes, we're planning to.
And if the CDC, if we're not in a position as a community to hold those events, what would happen with those funds?
Then we will look at another creative way of doing that. As a matter of fact, I don't want to be too presumptuous here. For instance, like I was at the Rotary today, they're already thinking of a creative way to have the Christmas parade. I'm anxious to see what they're going to do. So we would certainly try to do something creative to ensure that we're doing something. As you know, it's not only us coming together, but it's also a way of us giving to the community. So we would just have to sit down and become innovative with that. And if we don't, then it's there. But
I see.
I don't want to lose it.
Yes, ma'am. No, I agree. Community outreach is important, and I just know that we're in different times with COVID. At any rate, I support the watch guard switch over. It makes sense this budget year. It's definitely better for the officers. So, I support that, Chief. If that's something that is needed, your department's determined that you need that, and it makes our community safer. It makes our police officers safer. So with that, I'll get off of here and let my other council members talk.
May I say anything? I think I'm pretty good with most of it. I think Mr. Green and Ms. Shelfenberger and everybody's pretty well covered what I was concerned about.
I agree with the comments from Councilman Green there. I think that these the funds are very much needed in these programs, particularly the community outreach. I mean, we definitely don't need, in my opinion, to omit, our opportunity to exercise that activity, given that opportunity. So yes, I'll agree with the comments of Councilman Green.
I do as well. I agree with the watch guard for sure, for what it can provide us. I think that's great.
Mayor, may I ask a question, please?
Sure.
On the funds that are going to be used, the drug forfeiture funds to cover the offset the travel costs for the officers to do their training and travel if they need to have some training. I do notice that in the training budget, there are funds in there for the record staff to get their BIRMA certification training. Will those drug forfeiture funds, are those allowed to be used for the records clerks? If not, then could we see about adding their funds in a 40 account, the regular travel account, so that they can be ensured that they're going to be able to go to their training and be able to travel?
Chief, are we able to use the forfeiture money for record staff training?
I would feel more comfortable putting it back into the travel because you do know, as we've talked before, that our spending of forfeiture is guided by the statute. And so I will always, anytime I use forfeiture funds, I always go back and reread the statute for that. But I do prefer if we put that back into the travel budget. So
okay, so how much are we talking about?
I would estimate, Chief, for 2 of your staff to go, it'd be about $1,600 for the travel expenses.
Does that sound about right?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, so we're proposing to add $1,600 under travel for record staff training.
Mr. Helberger, I had another question I just wanted to ask.
Sure, sure.
On the position schedule on the last page for the budget, I see the 67 positions. Chief, could you talk about how many current vacancies you have, or are we full up, or all 67 authorized positions filled?
We just interviewed, I believe, 4, and we were down 7. Is it 4 or 5?
We're down 7. We got 2 that are certified.
We just had 5, right?
We have 5 open.
We have 5 openings, and we had 2 that we just interviewed that are certified. So that's going to take us down to 5. I'm sorry, yeah, 5. And we just interviewed 1 this week. Looked really good. So then we'll be down to 4.
I see. And all of those are police officers, all those positions?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then let's go to page 64 then for the fire department. We have a roughly a little over $5,000 increase from this budget to the next one, going to $2,715,987. One of the things, well, we have 2 major items we're looking at, but I would like to go right to those items first. We're looking at, if you look at the capital outlay, a light duty rescue truck to go on non-structural fire type calls. What I found in doing this in other communities is we cut drastically back on the fuel costs, and we also greatly extended the life of the large trucks necessary to put out structural fires. You know, where they have minor fires or other call outs, we found that definitely contributes to a significant savings within the department. If you go to page 68, it's listed for $125,000. The line below that is the 2 workstations of the 5 for the PSAP Annie and Alley upgrade for $50,000. Other significant items are the debt for the new fire station, $108,228, and the Motorola lease, a third allocated to the fire department for $56,980. I would go back to the beginning. Is there something else that you would like to highlight, Chief, as far as your budget?
No, sir. That was pretty much the probably the big ticket items right there. I don't have any discussion on it unless one of the council members needs some kind of explanation.
I noticed the retirement went down quite a bit. Is that because the fund's doing so good, or is there some other reason why it's going down?
I think I can answer that question, Mr. Mayor. The reason is because the actual rate went down, and also the funds have been doing better. So obviously the liability is not as much.
And that's both for fire and police that's occurred.
Yes.
And Ms. Duncan, I have a question for you. The state requirement for the presumptive health that was passed, did that raise our rate, and where is that reflected?
We don't have anything in the budget that I'm aware of, because we don't really know what that number is going to be. I don't know that in the information that we were provided for the health insurance or the insurance in general? Was that included in any of that? Because I don't recall seeing it.
No.
Michelle, can you touch on that, please?
So I'm not familiar. I'd have to get with Steve Roberts in terms of the coverages through the league on that. There was when we were educating in regards to the requirement, there are coverages that are available. But the coverage that like even the league would provide if we were to elect that only covered the one-time payout, which I believe is around $25,000. There, by the statute, there is a multitude of other things that would be required that the city it would be a liability to the city regardless of any insurance that we provided. So I don't believe we moved forward at looking at getting the coverage because of the limited benefits that it provided to us. But the city still has the liability, but it would be based on any occurrences that occur.
So there's not a insurance product that meets all of the state requirements on that, but so the city is, for lack of a better term, self-insured when it comes to the presumptive health?
For the new existing statutory requirement, that would be correct.
Mr. Helfenberger, for me, I obviously, if there's no product that's out there, we may be a little ahead of the game, but I would definitely like for us to research, and if there is a product that's out there, insurance-wise, that would cover us for that. I think in future budgets, that would make sense to me for us to have that. But I know it's a pretty, the presumptive health is pretty new, so it just, that product may not exist yet.
Okay, we'll be on the lookout for it.
Mr. Green, could you explain kind of what that is you're talking about?
Yes, sir. So different states are different, but basically what it is, the state of Florida has passed a presumptive health bill that says that firefighters who incur certain illnesses such as heart attacks or certain types of cancers, if they pass away from those illnesses, we're required to provide them a benefit. And what Michelle was talking about is there may be a one-time benefit if it's a death benefit, but also if the person's undergoing treatment such as cancer treatment, there would be some benefit. And the state has put that requirement onto the municipalities to provide that coverage to firefighters. But I think the insurance industry hasn't quite caught up in figuring out how best to do that. But we're required to provide that if, for example, if we had a firefighter that fell into one of those conditions, presumptive conditions. And that's kind of a ballpark of what I'm asking about.
I do know what you're talking about now. I do recall when they were doing that recently, and I know what you're talking about now, that I understand it.
And so what I'm concerned about, Mr. Mayor, is with us not having an insurance product that's budgeted, I'm concerned that the city, has an extensive liability potential that I want to try to mitigate if we can through insurance. But that product may not be available yet.
And that is an expensive area, so we do need to try to cover that.
Do you, Mr. Green, do you have this on your job? Do you have that coverage?
No, ma'am. So federal firefighters are a little bit different. For me specifically, I have to identify the specific run that I responded to that exposed me to something that would cause that particular cancer. So in the state of Florida, when Florida passed the presumptive health, Florida has said basically firefighting is a dangerous job. We know you're exposed to certain things. There's a pretty good chance that certain cancers and heart attacks are a result of your job. On the federal side, I have to report to the specific run that I went on that gave me the cancer exposure.
Oh, wow. Gosh.
So state firefighters really benefit from that. It's a great program. We just, from the city side, we need to make sure that we're prepared if, unfortunately, something were to happen.
Right. Thank you.
So we'll check with the league too to see if where they're at with this, if anything's in the works.
Well, the research is already, the ball's rolling with the research. I know Steve is working on it. He was trying to get some estimates. There are companies already out there asking to insure fire departments for these, but we don't have any history behind those different insurance companies. And Steve was doing some research and working through the League of Cities to try to find out the best policy that would fit our small group. So there is some work being done on that, Mr. Green. I know that Steve is researching that.
Super, thanks, Chief. That's all I had.
I do agree with the light vehicle. I think for a lot of calls that more medical oriented and traffic accidents, things like that, that it would be really beneficial. And I agree with the city manager that it'll save the wear and tear and fuel, and just easier to get in and out of those type of places.
I've done this in another community, and we saved a tremendous amount of money and decreased fuel costs and extended life of the bigger vehicles that are used for the structural fires.
Yeah, the world of firefighting is kind of changing towards the medical side. I mean, 80% of our calls these days, they're medical calls. So what we're wanting to do is quit sending that, $350,000 fire apparatus out on every little fender bender or every medical call. And we want to switch over to this, basically a 550 chassis, Ford chassis, crew cab truck with a rescue type body on the back that will hold all the equipment that we would need for these types of calls. So instead of sending out, as Mr. Helfenberger stated, the larger fire apparatus on every call, it will absolutely save maintenance and wear and tear on those vehicles.
Anything else in the fire department that you'd like any answers on? Okay, then let's go to, so we've got Water and Sewer Administration on page 81.
Service. Water sewer admin.
I have a question on 81. The delinquent fees and penalties, were just about cut in half. What happened there? Were there less penalties?
I'm going to let Katrina answer that question. She can probably answer it better than me.
Okay.
You there, Katrina?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
We've been working very, very diligently to collect as much as we could. The girls have worked very, very hard over this last year to get those down. And due to COVID, we have not been charging penalties since all of this started.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then if you look at the next line, revenue bond subsidy, again, we mentioned yesterday, that with the refinancing of the revenue debt, although we saved $10 million, we lost the revenue bond subsidy that we were relying on to help with the cash flow. So the first approximately 4 years are going to have higher payments, and then it starts tapering off after that. Let's see. Paul, do you have anything that you'd like to say on the utility administration?
Not do I get any questions on it. Everything's pretty much straightforward so far.
Mr. Helfenberger?
Yes.
On capital outlay land 61, I see the 25,000. Could you talk to that just a little bit for the easements, where we're at with that, and if that figure included all the easements that we needed?
Normally we budget about $25,000 for easements. For a small easement, you can do quite a few of those. If you had a large easement, that might take the whole amount of money. It's so much a foot, and the formula can be used a lot of times, but if you have a key property where you, for example, with the 4775 project, now I know it's a grant project, but we still have to acquire easements for the locations for the 2 lift stations. We had to exceed that by quite a bit to be able to get those easements. When you absolutely have to have easements and they're key infrastructure, sometimes that is not enough money to do that, but we know we're going to have a number of easements coming up historically, and the 25,000 has worked except for big projects.
So the easements for the 47 project, though, that's already been paid for. So this 25,000 is not specific to the 47.
That's correct. Station. But okay, we may not have already paid for that, but I believe I'd have to defer to Paul, but Paul, is that allowed to come out of the grant?
No, the easements are not allowed to come out of the grant. And the one easement, we were able to make a deal with the landowner on the west side to get that easement for free, which could have ended up costing us, around $20,000, $30,000. But he allowed us to get it for free because he knows it'll benefit his subdivision in the long run. The one on the east side, the one Mr. Helfenberger is referring to, we did end up having to work out a deal with the business to be able to acquire that easement to put the lift station there. That was one of those that we're working with them in a way to be able to pay for that easement. It was around $31,000, I believe, and some change to be able to acquire that. We generally, if the easement benefits the city in a way that we're trying to get aligned, we usually we have to end up a lot of times paying the landowner. Most of the time, 90% of the time, when we acquire an easement, is to help a landowner or a homeowner to be able to acquire water and sewer, and generally they're eager to, just give us an easement to get there. But money here is for next year.
So the 25,000 is pretty much a standard number unless we know that we have something on the horizon.
Yes.
Okay.
And like Mr. Helfenberger said, that is in case we come up, like last year, we were trying to acquire an easement to be able to get a gas line out to that new assisted living facility on the west side of town.
Right.
We ran into several roadblocks with that, and we ended up being able to do it without having to spend the easement money. We were able to work out a deal with DOT And Mr. Brown worked diligently with DOT to be able to get on their right of way. But a lot of times we end up where we're not able to get on the right of way, and that's where we end up because we're also looking at expanding the system all that we can. And sometimes the landowners, where it's beneficial sometimes to pay for an easement if we end up having to run a line another mile down the road where we could get easy access through someone's property.
I see.
Just for a buffer.
Super, thank you. That was my concern. I just didn't know if that was tied specific to the 47 project or the mega industrial park or the joint projects that we have really with the county. Because I know that that's kind of a new thing for us to be doing those. So that's why I asked.
Generally, most of the joint stuff we're doing with the county, I am pretty sure probably 99% of all easements that we will acquire will either be in right of way or they will be donated to us through warehouses. So we shouldn't have any more expense as far as easements on any of those projects.
I see. Thank you.
Paul, do you want to touch on the capital outlay infrastructure under 63 for the sewer water miscellaneous projects?
Yes, what that is, Council and Mayor, is we're in the process right now of having a sewer capacity study done. And what triggered that is that Bell Street project for Warner Enterprises up on the north end of town. We have a lot of choke points within our system, and to better know what the capacity build out will be for Bell Road, we're having a study done on our infrastructure getting back to St. Margaret's. What this does is we're not sure, we're going to apply for grants. I've got several that we're applying for now, but they're not guaranteed. I put this money in here after talking to Mr. Helfenberger. If another business comes up there and we find out when this model comes back, which should come back within the next month or so, that if we do have a chokehold that would limit a business being able to come up there, we needed some money to be able to be in there to be able to take care of that project instead of, because even if we applied for a grant, you're looking at most of the time a year and a half, 2 years out before you actually receive the funding. And this money would be available if on that project or say something on the 47 or 75 project came up. It's basically there because we know 4775 is coming. We know Bell Road is there. And we also know if the mega industrial park comes up, this isn't a whole lot of money. It's not going to accomplish a whole lot, but it would be enough if we had a business come in and the city, we wouldn't want to be holding the business up if we were able to fix a line with this amount of money.
Good.
One more question too. I know on the back page where we have the position schedule, there's a Scada Analyst position that was added in there. I have no idea what that is. Could you just educate me as to what that is?
Yeah, what we're looking to do is all of our plants, talking about the two wastewater plants, the spray field, the power system, the water plant, all of our lift stations are tied into the SCADA system, which what it is a monitoring system that sends off alarms. Say like if you have a lift station on the north side of town that starts to overflow, the alarm goes off, it comes to us to let us know that it's overflowing. What we're wanting to do is tie we have 3 different systems that we use within the city. We're wanting to get them all tied together, make it more functional, more user-friendly. And what we're trying to do is to take this position here, which, as you'll see, eliminated the one position, the part-time custodian position, and created this one, which is actually just keeps me at the same number of personnel. But basically what it is, it would also help get an individual in with expertise to be able to work on our SCADA system. Right now, we have to do maintenance contracts that I sent in all the documentation and stuff would actually save the city money by having a Scada Analyst and eliminating the service contracts and all that we have to use outside because we don't have anybody at present in the city with the expertise to be able to do all the stuff we need within the Scada system.
Does if for example, you have an after hours alarm at a lift station, other than locally at that station alarming, where does that notification come to?
It will go to, like if the water plant out there has an issue out there, alarm will go to Mike Osborne or Trey Crossman. And say like here, if there's an issue at the sewer plants, the alarms will go to Bill Fish or Cody Pridgeon. They get those alarms on their phones. That way they're alerted that there's something wrong, and then they can respond themselves or have an on-call text. Say like a lift station alarm goes off, it will go to like Brian Scott or someone, one of the call-out guys, and then they get there to be able to get to it in a timely manner before it overflows.
So that alarm rings directly to those responsible individuals?
Yes, sir.
Outstanding. Thanks.
Okay. We're looking at this Scada Analyst position would save the city a little over $72,000, and it would coordinate the alert system for the city to mitigate and minimize any risk as we're trying to prevent major catastrophes. Any other questions on the Water Sewer Administration? Okay, then the next section is customer service on page 87. And it looks like budget is going up a little bit from $633,817 to $654,521. And that's we're going a little bit higher in the health, life, health, and disability. Contractual services going up a little. We spend about $48,000 on EMS credit card fees. We have a smart energy water app, and maybe Katrina, could you talk a little bit about that smart energy water app?
Yeah, so we finally got the app up and going where you're able to go on and pay your bill. You're able to watch your meter. It's basically the same service that we're doing here, but the customer can do it straight from their phone. We had a lot of requests for the app. A lot of people didn't like to go on our website to pay their bills, so they've been able to utilize this app and track their own meter, and their water usage is what they're doing at that time.
Okay. One thing we did too, if you look at the page on staffing, we're looking and proposing that we take the customer service representative 1s, 2s, and 3s and combine them into customer service representative 1, 2, 3 for all 7 positions. That allows the flexibility for the customer service to take advantage of the available talent that's out there and to further develop it without having to go through the chart change every time. I don't know if, Michelle, did you want to talk any more about that?
That is actually something that we started, especially with the position schedules. You'll see it again in distribution and collections with the 1s and 2s. With customer service, they're a little unique in terms that the reps 1, 2, and 3, although they're housed in the same pay grade, through the position schedule, it does give us a flexibility if there is increased responsibilities. By job description, each level does have specific skills and responsibilities that differentiate each other. So with having it grouped, it does give the department the ability to make the movements, as a promoting ability, and not being strapped to the confines of the position schedule.
Okay. Any other questions on customer service?
I want to say that I've had a couple of calls this year on my business and this old house and leaks and all, and there was things I wasn't even aware of. And fortunately, I was able to fix them pretty quick just because of our meter service and our customer service doing that. So I appreciate it, and I think it's great for the community.
Thank you.
And I can tell you that the staff has done an excellent job with a lot of difficulties to handle. They've had some people that were extremely demanding, and they maintained a very positive, supportive composure throughout the entire discussion, and we're offering all kinds of creative solutions for the customer. And so I think they're I want to recognize that, and I appreciate that they are trying to take the customer's side every chance they get without deviating from the guidelines.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else on customer service? Next, we have the water treatment plant on page 90. We have the overall budget's going up from $1,768,710 to $2,029,994, primarily because we're looking under the infrastructure to add a 5th well. It was probably about a month and a half ago, maybe a little longer, we were down from our 4 existing wells down to 2 working wells. And I know the guys worked around the clock and got a 3rd well back online, but that 4th well has taken some time. And with we're thinking that it would be very helpful to have a little more of a buffer in case we would have wells going down in the future, as well as be able to handle increased development to add a 5th well at this time. I don't know if Mike or Paul would want to add anything on this.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
During the month of June, we lost 2 of our wells. We had to change our pumping rotations and everything. We had to cut out flushing. We actually put Brian's crew in a bind because they had to slow down on their fire hydrant maintenance just so we could keep up, because we were only able to produce around 4.8 million bringing into the plant when we were putting out 3.4. So we had to, like I said, we had to reduce our fill levels and like that so that the plant wouldn't have to run an excessive amount of time. So we are looking at maybe putting in another well. We're going to try to get engineered with a submersible rather than a vertical turbine like the other 4 wells. It's just a matter of hopefully we can get it through Swanee River Water Management District to be able to permit it. It would definitely ease the mind of all the operators, including myself, considering I went 7 weekends in a row at that plant, fixing small problems to make sure during that period to make sure that the water kept pumping.
Well, we appreciate that.
Yay.
So currently, how many wells do we have and how many are working fully operational right now?
Currently, all 4 wells are currently working back in operation. We had 1 well that was replaced this year. During the installation, there was a factory defect with it. So 3 weeks after it was put in service, it basically quit pumping. So that was replaced by the manufacturer and the contract that we had. That was all replaced for free. Unfortunately, the well we had replaced a year ago, when they installed that, I guess they had cross-threaded one of the shafts, and it took 11 months and 3 weeks, and it snapped and made that one utterly useless. So we had to have it pulled. We did an emergency pull on it, had it repaired and reinstalled. But we currently have all 4 wells back up and running to full capacity.
Super. And Joe, Swanee River management, for them, they cap us at how many wells are we allowed to have through them? Do you know that number?
Well, Swanee River actually caps us by how much water we can pull out of the ground per day. But DEP tells us we can only treat 9 million a day. So, but Swanee River has to do the permitting for any new wells. And with us only having to be able to pull 4.192 per day right now out of the ground, they may not let us. We're going to have to get it through them, because right now with all 4 wells turned on, we can actually produce the 9 that DEP is allowing us to produce. So it's all got to be done through Swanee River.
Okay, so Swanee River Water Management District wants us to do a reuse study we're going to have to get the approval to do this, obviously, before then. But they're willing to fund approximately $28,000 of the study. The study could be up to $50,000. The county has indicated they would pay half of what the remaining amount would be. The study would be used to get a higher limit. Right now it's a little over 4.192 million gallons per day is our maximum we're allowed. We're looking to go towards a 20-year agreement with them on reuse, because as we would be using as the East Sewer plant develops, that will be the amount of flow they can take should grow over time, and we'd have a greater capacity to do reuse over there. Whereas the Kickletter plant, we need a lot of the water needs to be fed into the wetlands in order to keep the wetlands functioning well. And so we really don't have much of a capacity to do reuse with our St. Margaret's or our Kickletter facilities. The East Sewer plant can, over time, create the ability to do more reuse. But they want to tie reuse into allowing more capacity for the city to be able to pump for the water needs of the community. So we are working very actively with Swanee River Water Management District on this, and we'll be coming back to the city council with reports and ask for permission to proceed with this consumptive use permit study.
Yeah, that makes sense. We talk a lot, all of us, I believe. I don't want to speak for my fellow council members, but I imagine most of us want smart development. We talk a lot about Bell Road and 47 and the mega industrial park on the east side. And so I can see where if we're limited to 9 million gallons, that would be a limiting factor for us.
Okay, we have the physical capacity if we were to put all the wells in to do 9 million gallons, but the state through the Swanee River Water Management District is limiting us to under 4.1 million gallons, no matter what our physical capacity is. And so that's why we're looking to do this study, and we're looking to do a long-term agreement with them because we have very little capacity to add reuse right now. And we're looking as we'd have an East Sewer plant and that would grow as the need grows and the revenue grows to be able to pay for the infrastructure. Over time, we'd be able to do more and more reuse on the east side. We have extremely limited ability to do reuse in the rest of the city.
This is probably too deep in the weeds, but are all of our wells connected so that if a well goes down, the entire system is still fed by the other wells, or is it that a well serves a certain part of the city, another well would serve a separate part of the city? Are they all interconnected?
All 4 wells are interconnected. They're on the same line coming into the plant. They're all located. One's located on the plant grounds. The other 3 are down the dirt road right next to the plant throughout Swanee River Water Management District property.
And the new well would be located in the same area?
The new well would be located in the middle of right now we have, the plant was originally designed and it had 9 well sites. Only 4 wells were originally installed, 1, 2, 8, and 9. If we go to install another well, if we're able to install another well, I would like to put it at well space 6, which is basically in the middle of the other 4 wells.
Super.
Okay. Anything else on the water treatment plant?
If I may say something, Mr. Green, the position that Paul was talking about too, this year we're spending $47,000 out of this budget this year to get our SCADAs upgraded. With that position, because we're having to use an outside contractor, with that position, we could have probably saved $30,000 of that if we'd had it on hand this year. So the position that Paul has put in for that SCADA analysis will definitely save a lot of money over the coming years. It'll save me on having to hire contractors. Plus, eventually I'll be able to pull back from my Rockwell integrated services contract too, which we spend about $30,000 a year on.
Good.
Yeah, I fully support the position. You guys are the subject matter experts. A lot of the questions that I'm asking is more for me to be educated about the process and what you guys need and how we can support you. So because I'm asking questions, don't think I'm opposed to the ideas. It's more of an educational process for me.
No, sir, I just wanted to give you a little bit more of an overview how it's going to affect me. It's gonna end up saving not only me, but like I said, the lift station crews, the wastewater crews, all that, by having that person, because when it comes time for their upgrades, we'll have that person on hand too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, you want to talk a little bit about the engineering for the EPA, AWIA 2018 compliances?
Okay. The federal government, the EPA, we have to do a risk and resiliency assessment, which is being done this year. It should be completed before September 30th. But a follow-up to that has to be done where we have to basically all of the places that we find that have like with our wells, where we had 2 wells out, stuff like that, where there could be any impact to the city as far as getting treated water to the citizens. Once that analysis is done, we have to put together basically an impact how we're going to prevent this. So that'll be engineered and redone this year. I have until March of next year to turn over my paper. Well, I don't turn it over. I have to do a verification with the APA that we've had the study done and I have it on site. That way DEP can look at it at any time when they want to come out. They've prevented us from sending it because they don't want it to end up becoming public record and putting vulnerable areas out on the airwaves for our plant. Then 6 months after that, I have to turn in the revision of what changes we have made to take care of these problems. So beginning October, we're going to be starting the engineering process on that so that I can have them both done, so that in May I can submit the first one, and then 6 months later submit the second one and have them both in so that we don't get fined. The EPA has stated you'll be fined $34,000 a month for any month that you fall over without having this stuff reported.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on the water treatment plant? Let's go to the wastewater treatment plant then on page 94. We've got a decrease in the expenses for this next budget, going from $2,045,989 to $1,666,157. A huge decrease in the infrastructure and machinery and equipment. We have also a decrease in utility services, in repairs, in operating supplies. Cody, could you talk a little bit about the transition and why the costs are going down?
Yes, sir. We, last year's budget was the first full year that we had operated the Kicklighter facility. So some of the stuff like the operating supplies and the utility services, we were just kind of guessing at what we were going to need for the full year. So this year we were able to dial them in a little better and cut some of those costs back. And as far as the infrastructure and the capital accounts being less now, we got the funds to do the upgrades at St. Margaret's, where a lot of that money would have been budgeted in capital. So that's why they're lower.
Okay. And I do believe you have a little bit in there for if the e-sewer plant would get online sooner. You have a couple months in there for that, just in case they're ahead of construction schedule, so that we don't get caught without funds.
Yes, we did put a little extra in there for the chemicals and the sludge hauling and fuel and stuff that may have to happen
there. I know we spent a lot of money at St. Margaret's last year with different things, replacing valves and pumps and whatnot. Did we extend the life of that plant out? Do we have a projection when that plant life expectancy comes to an end, or is it going to be ongoing for the foreseeable future?
Well, we're working on, we got the centrifuge and the generator and the return activated sludge pumps, the influent pumps. So now we're working on the aeration basin, the clarifiers. I don't know if you saw the assessment that the engineers did here a couple months ago when they outlined everything in there with life expectancy and how old the stuff was that we're trying to replace and going to get replaced. So that will definitely increase, most of the stuff is 30 plus years old there at St. Margaret's, other than the things that we've recently replaced, like the aerators are 30 plus years old. The effluent pumps are 20 something years old. So when we get everything replaced there, you can figure we got another 20 years to go before we have to do this thing again.
So putting in approximately 6.1 million in improvements into that St. Margaret's plant over this next budget.
Yes, sir.
That's
And
pretty much been confirmed.
we've budgeted significantly less for repairs and maintenance because of these upgrades that we've done. It's going to save us a lot of money in repairs and maintenance. We got new equipment now.
Yeah. Any questions on the wastewater treatment? Okay, then let's go to the spray fields on page 98. We've got a decrease there from $875,031 to $831,507. We have a roughly $60,000 decrease in infrastructure expenditures. We do have an increase in machinery and equipment. Cody, do you want to give just a synopsis about the spray fields, where we're at and where we're trying to head?
Yes, sir. Y'all are aware we've got the grant for the gravity line tie-in as well as the gravity recharge well out there. That's $1.8 million, and we're working with FDEP to get those things done. There's a $50,000 match with that grant, so that's part of what's in the professional services there to meet that match. Also, in machinery and equipment, we got the Kubota tractor last year, and we're asking for a grapple attachment for us to help us clear limbs and stuff out of fence lines, that sort of thing. New batwing mowers, batwing are old, and we're constantly having to work on them. We do a lot of mowing out there. We've got over 500 acres out there that we mow total. That's something that we really need. And we've been replacing the spray field pumps out there, the effluent pumps, and the motors. We've been trying to budget for one a year, so that's what you see there to replace the motor on effluent pump number 3. And the bucket truck, we were looking at getting a used bucket truck, and we could use that throughout the whole utilities, and we could trim up trees and stuff along the fence line out there. We get complaints from neighbors that live around the wetlands and the spray field about trees hanging on our property that's hanging over onto theirs. You know, we could get that kind of stuff trimmed up, as well as use the bucket trucks in the plants to change out lights that go out up on top of tanks and wherever else in the utilities, the lift stations, whatever. We could use it all over. I don't think it would be something that's set around very much.
You want to explain about the purpose of planting those pine trees?
Yes. So we're currently not using the biosolid site for disposing of the biosolids. H&H hauls our sludge off and they spread it on their field. So the pine trees, where we used to plant spread the sludge at, is just open like long strips of field. We could plant these pine trees in there, and it would be an investment to the city that, you know, 15, 20 years from now, we could go in there and log the pines and, you know, get a little back off the property and save on mowing too. So.
Didn't we do that last year? I thought we had a item that came before us that we voted for. for planting pine trees.
You're right, we did. And whenever it came time to buy the pine trees, there was a shortage on seedlings and the planter couldn't get them. So we've rebudgeted to do it this year.
Wow, so we couldn't get them last year.
Couldn't get them. I don't know if you know, there's a short window whenever they want to plant pine trees, and our budget year works out to where whenever the funds are available for us to get them is the time whenever everybody's buying them. They say we really should be putting our order in June or July to make sure that we've got those trees. And, you know, so we missed it last year, and we'll try again this year.
Anything else on the spray field? Okay, then we got the water distribution and collections on page 102.
I noticed accounting and auditing was no more.
No, that shouldn't have been there last year anyway, because we spread that out to other places and we just left it there. And I just told Brian we would take it out this year.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a decrease in the water distribution and collections from $5,032,294 to $4,640,689. That's primarily due to the decrease in the purchase of machinery and equipment, going from a little over 1.2 million to about half to 650,560. And in the machinery and equipment account on page 105, your main item in there is the lift station pumps. So either Paul or Brian or Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about those lift station pumps?
For the pumps or something, you know, we had, like Cody was talking about a while ago, a lot of these lift stations are old, and in the preventative maintenance and stuff that we're trying to do, we try to keep as many of them repaired as we can. But as most people tell you, a lot of them are old. You can't hardly find parts for them anymore. And a lot of times if it gets to the point where it's costing you over twice what the, if it costs more than half to buy a pump than it does to fix one, and one of these old ones, it doesn't make any sense to keep wasting money on these old pumps. Now, to this end right here, as far as the lift station pumps, like I said, we got 6.3 lift stations, and they go down quite often, like I said, with the old equipment. But we are in the process right now, or I'm in the process right now of working with Fred Fox and with John Dedman and with Brian, trying to get a grant to replace and rehab several of our lift stations, and also to get funding for more generators. Now, we don't know if we'll get the funding or not, but we are going to apply for it. I think at this time we got like, I think 5, 6, or 7, I think it is, one, Brian, that you submitted to me, that we're going to try to rehab, which would be for new pumps, motors, and for the generators to go up to certain ones. We're trying to be proactive since the hurricane a few years ago, when the city lost the whole power and we lost the whole system. DEP doesn't really care. That's basically what they told me. That, and Jacksonville did the same thing. A lot of cities in the state of Florida had the same issue. So we're trying to get as many standby generators as we can at these stations. So in case We lose power, the flow continues. It's also a health and safety if you had a lot of sewer spills in these neighborhoods. And that's one of the reasons we're applying for this grant, and to not only get the generators, but also trying to get some new pumps and stuff to rehab several of our generators. We've already got quite a few generators at the stations and rehab quite a few of them. And Brian and them usually try to budget, and they hit the most critical ones, or what we call the big lift stations, where most of the flow comes into it to be able to push it to St. Margaret's. But we are in the process of trying to get a grant to help us out this year, but we don't know if we're going to get it or not, because everyone knows grants are a hit and miss. But we have to have money in there to be able to cover, which we know we're going to have pumps go out. It's not if, it's just when they go out.
So Paul, the 63 lift station rehab and pumps, that's fixing what we have. And then the 200,000 is buying brand new pumps.
Yes.
Okay.
The cameras, is that for going in and checking for leaks and things? And
that adds on to our camera truck that we've had upgraded. It's a small lateral camera. The one they sent with the truck is pretty good size. It's made for bigger pipes, and when you get down to the smaller size, 6 and 8, it won't go in there really good. The other one's mainly a lateral camera. This will camera smaller lines, and plus it's GPS and everything, and sends it back to our GSI department to be put onto the maps at the same time.
Do we know, Paul, not to put you on the spot, but do we know how many lift stations we don't have backup generators for?
What is that number, Brian, for plus or minus?
We have 15 generators at stations right now. We have a total of 64 stations. All of our big stations, main critical stations, are covered. The ones that we have right now, we also have 4 portable standby generators we can move over to them where we can keep them pumped down. So we're in pretty good shape right now with them. We're steady working toward, adding more each time.
I missed that first number. How many lift stations did you say?
Right now we have 15 sitting on site at stations.
And 4 portable.
And 4 portables, yes, sir.
And then how many without, how many more lift stations did we have?
Well, we have a total of 64, so minus that number is 15.
Yeah. So we still need if we were going to have a generator that available for each lift station, we still need quite a few generators, 40-something generators.
Yes, sir, in theory, but most of the stations we got now, except for maybe 2 or 3, they'll hold for 2 or 3 days at a time, so we can move our portables around and pump them down.
I see.
But we hit all our major stations in the last 2 to 3 years. We've hit all them stations that won't hold, more than 24 hours. They've all got natural gas generators on them. We don't have to worry about the diesel. Steve's been good with us about helping us get natural gas anywhere we didn't have them. So it's working out good.
And as we can work with the emergency government, they have grants that help provide generators for lift stations. You can get, let's say 5 to 7 of them at a crack. Because you got a few days here, if we can go through that process, we can get them very cost effectively.
Yeah, I would think that would be a priority. We definitely want to focus on. Ideally, you would like to have backup power for each of those. Just, the idea that you would spend the manpower and man hours to rotate those 4 portable generators, it just seems like a lot, and it's fine until it overflows, until you don't get there, because something else has come up. But anyway, that's interesting.
It's been a lot better in the last 2 or 3 years having them on there, like I said, with the spills and trying to get one. We only had 2, trying to get all them generators moved around. So like I said, we're still working on trying to get, like the Paul's acquired for grants, and because them generators run about $90,000 when you buy one outright. So we're still working on quite a bit more.
But if we identify that as a priority for us, so we're able to work on that over the next 10 or 15 years and maybe get us up where we need to be.
Yes, sir. That's our goal. We're hoping, they say, the next 10 years that all our generators, and even the ones that are being put in out there on 47 interchange, we've already had them quoted with generators for them too.
Yes.
Okay. And another point on that, Councilman Green, is this grant that I'm applying for now, because like Mr. Helberg said, there's several out there. The one, and a lot of them are specific to certain areas in town, and the one I'm applying for right now is mostly to be able to rehab and take care of the generators, mostly on the north end of town. And they have certain areas based on, you know, the geographics and everything to be able to apply for certain grants. But there are several out there, but a lot of them, you know, you can only apply for so many at a time. But the one that we have right now is for that specific area up there.
And I would suspect that if it's a wetter area, it would probably be a higher priority as well, right? Or does that matter?
Yeah, based on the like Brian said, the amount of flow that comes, we have like what we consider master lift stations where you have more flow come into them. You have some that have less flow come into them, like Brian said, will hold for, you know, for 2 or 3 days or so. This is something like we said that we've really been pushing the last few years. Like Brian said, you know, generators average run around 90,000 and then be able to, you know, run the lines to get the gas and all hooked up to them so we can stay away from diesel. And to be able to, we've submitted several applications in the past and not got them. Like I said, grants are hit and miss, but we try to stay on top of all of them that we have. I have an engineering firm that, you know, keeps an eye out for any grants that may come up that may be applicable to a certain area that we can apply for. The question is, you know, we just have to try to do the best we can because everybody in the state's trying to do the same thing based on all the stuff that happened in the hurricane in the last few years. They all got hit with the same consent orders and stuff that we did. So basically, like I said a while ago, DEP doesn't really care that you're out of power for 2 or 3 or 4 days or a week or so. They just want to make sure that the sewage never hits the ground. And that's what we're trying to accomplish right now. And we've done real good the last few years.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? Water distribution and collections. Okay, then we've got the water sewer construction fund. In there, we just have 2 projects. One project for the I-75-47 improvements is $2,697,456. And then the what we talked about earlier with the St. Margaret's wastewater treatment plant upgrades at the $6,100,000 that we borrowed earlier in the year. Then going to impact fees on page 109. We presently have $1,646,296 in the impact fee account to go towards new development costs. Out of that amount, the City Council has committed $600,000 to Warner for doing the looping of the water and sewer systems beyond what the Warner's needs were. And that money is due in $200,000 a year for 3 years, starting after the project that they're currently working on Bell Street is fully completed.
You said the 600,000 is due now?
No, it's due in $200,000 a year for 3 years, starting when the Bell Road construction is fully completed.
Okay, I misunderstood you.
And this isn't for the Warner portion, it's for the portion Warner did to loop the utilities so we have it available for future customers.
Joe, for for round figures, for the other $1 million, do we have a time frame that has to be spent, or is that something that we can continue to carry forward until future projects come up? Or is there an obligation to spend those funds?
Okay. There's been recent law passed on impact fees, and it has to be tied to specific projects, and there has to be a connection between the amount that is raised and the amount needed to do these projects. And so we're looking at doing an impact fee analysis that would account for priority projects that would encompass the funds there. That also provides a buffer in case you have a huge sewer water collapse. It could very well take $1 million to fix if it was in a very complicated intersection. So we want to, well, I think we have to show the connection and meet the new state law. We still, there's prudence in keeping a healthy amount in that fund at all times, just for a major catastrophe that might happen.
And with us having recently waived impact fees temporarily, do we have, or is anyone taking advantage of that? Has that driven anyone to come onto the system yet?
I believe that the customer service department has been very busy. Katrina, I don't know if you'd like to comment on that. Or Paul, if you're aware.
I mean, there's still a lot of construction going on right now, but as far as anybody that's actually been submitted that's took advantage of the waiver, I don't get that information. So.
Sure.
Yeah, yes, the TAP and Impact Department has been very busy in customer service. Matter of fact, we just met with growth management today and talked about a few that we've got going on. So they've been very, very busy in that department for right now.
So would you say then, based on the increase that has been a positive step for the community, then that now we have people who are coming on that maybe were not, that were delaying because they didn't want to pay the fee?
I think some people are just now going, okay, well, we can get it done and not have to pay the fee, and they're jumping on. I don't know that necessarily they would have done it any other way type thing.
And that's the ideal. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the Impact Trust Fund? Then we have the Natural Gas Department. Basically, the total amount for revenues and expenditures is down a little bit from $4,438,707 to $4,310,521. Steve, could you talk a little bit about your natural gas sales and where do you see the trends in this in your departments?
Sure. So one thing that we're seeing that's a positive note from the gas industry is the market has stabilized over the last several years. So the cost of actual purchasing gas per the decatherm, we're down to about $3, which is very, very competitive in the market. Also, we have been able to join in as part of a member of Florida Gas Utility and buy into some prepaid deals that locked us into an even lower rate as a group. So that in a combined effort has allowed us to purchase our gas at a lower cost, which shows up as we're still flowing the same amount of product, but we're actually purchasing at a cheaper cost.
Two of the utilities that we're going to need to expand to service the mega industrial park are the water with the consumptive use permit, which we talked about earlier, and the other is natural gas. And we have been served very well by Tom Jeffries, and we are planning to meet with him in the very near future and ask him to help to put together a solid plan on phased expansion of natural gas to the east. We have to have committed resources before we can do any expansion, because we have to use those resources to be able to pay the cost on any debt that would be required to extend the utilities.
Joe, I think earlier this year, a couple of times we had natural gas come before us for the long-term contracts for us to purchase natural gas and supply it. And if I remember right, we had to use so much, or we had to agree to buy so much for so many years. Could you talk a little bit about that? And is that working out well for us? Are we able to meet the demand currently that we were committed to with the supplier?
I'll have Steve take over in a second, but essentially when we buy a certain amount, we have to guarantee it for that period of time. So we will make as sure as possible that we are going to require a certain demand. We don't want to stretch ourselves thin where we're caught short. We are very calculated in how we go about agreeing to quantities for the supply. And with that, Steve, if you'd like to embellish this, that would be appreciated.
Sure. So Councilman Green, what we done is we actually purchased at lower percentages. So say, for example, 30% of our overall throughput throughout the day or annually even. So that number was relatively manageable. So we wasn't actually stressed about having to burn a large quantity. And also in the contracts as they were drawn, we were able to turn back any unused capacity. We were actually able to sell that back through the FGU membership program again. So in the event that we did have an overburn or an underburn day, we weren't stuck through a contractual agreement to purchase anything that we didn't actually use. So to answer your question in a whole it has worked out very well. As you can see, we're purchasing gas at a lower rate. That number is reflected right off the very top line there. And as far as throughput burn, we haven't had any overcharges whatsoever through purchased gas. So it is working out very well for us.
And wasn't that a long-term agreement? I might be wrong about this, but just going from memory, I thought it was 15 or 20 years or something. I thought it was a really long commitment.
Sure. So again, to the point of the market stabilizing, the natural gas reserves and the amount of gas that's out there, we've kind of got a real firm grip on it from the United States standpoint. The shelves that are out in west of the United States, everything is coming together for us here in the industry from a gas standpoint. That the answer to your question is the deals that we're having to lock in to make them favorable to us as a distribution system, that we know we're not going to go out of the gas business. Some are even as long as 30 years. But there's still, we have the option, as Mr. Helvenberger alluded to in the beginning, we still have the option to back out of those. So if we get in and something comes along that's more favorable, that's what Tom Jeffers and FGU actually does for us. Jeffries, excuse me. They'll actually go in and negotiate those rates. So in the event that we find a more favorable deal or a more lucrative deal or something that works better for the city, we're able to actually move around within those. So definitely long term, but they do work out for us.
Outstanding. Thank you.
How's our promotional program going?
So our rebate program has really been outstanding. We are kind of like a poster child for the whole group throughout the state and small municipalities. With the 3 years that we've been in it, we're over 300 rebates that we've paid out. 300 rebates equal to an average 15, 20 years at a burner tip of an appliance. So the revenue over that span of being able to either reuse that gas facility that we've already put the infrastructure in and or supply infill to a new customer on that pipeline is in black and white. It's generating revenue. Customer service does a great job along with finance and tracking that data that could be shared. Mr. Helmberger, I'm sure would love to share that with you, but we actually have shown we've surpassed 300 rebates. So it's working very well.
I think I got something in the mail the other day. I think it's a great program.
You probably did. We send mail outs out. That's part of our line items. You'll see in here that some of it says public awareness. Some of it is just for marketing. But we have several bill stuffers. We've really taken advantage of every option in our wheelhouse, in our toolbox to be able to get the message out to our customers. And it's again, it's worked out real well for us. There's a lot of smaller municipalities that look to us for advice on how we actually worked our program. So we're very proud of that.
We appreciate it.
Steve, we've got listed under the section 63 capital outlay infrastructure, gas main extensions by the Country Club, East Side Village, Northeast Gum Swamp Road, and also 7547. But there's one that's called the Reserves Gas Main Extension. Is that that housing area, or is this something else?
So what that is a project that's kind of laying in wait. I was approached by a North Florida Professional Services and also a contractor that's looking to build another assisted living facility, real similar to the one that was built on the far west lateral that was put into play last year. We kind of went ahead and budgeted for that in the hopes that they'll actually be able to obtain the easements. They are working on it as a private entity right now, but they're looking at putting water and gas in there. So I labeled it as that because we will pick up some generators, but our main end goal is to pick that assisted living facility up. Obviously, they use heat, they use water heaters, and as well as their kitchen. So that's kind of what it'll be. It'll be labeled as that, but our end goal is to pick that assisted living facility up.
Steve, could I ask you a question? The Interstate 75 and 47, that's $100,000. Did we get any part of that environmental grant? Did gas get any part of that?
So yes, under the great direction of Mr. Dial, he was able to work with Jones Edmond, and basically what they'd done based on the generators that Brian had already put into play. There was one generator in question that was really close to a wetland. Jones Edmond was able to jump on that with both feet and basically say that was close enough to that wetland to require a supplemental fuel source other than electricity, and that the grant would pay for natural gas to be run to it. So with that, Paul, under his guidance, basically went in and said, if we're going to do it for one, we'll do it for all. What we've done there is accounted for anything in addition to that. So if we go under the interstate and we're going to supply it further down the line, we didn't want to be hindered by just the grant. So the grant will help us, yes, ma'am, but we wanted to be able to have funds available to accommodate future growth once we got under the interstate.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Okay. Anything else on natural gas? Okay. That's...
Mr. Helfenberger, there is
Yes.
one thing that I wanted to mention. Last night, we did not go over page 60, which has to do with garbage services. It wasn't really mentioned because there's not a tab to it, but I just wanted to bring it to the council's attention.
Okay. Let's see.
I think it increased a little bit.
And
I mean, growth management. It's the last one.
right, the contract that we have for that provides for you know, an increase in the amount. I don't know whether this is allowing for additional customers or just the increase that would be allowed with the
That has to do with our overall garbage services in general and what we pay to Waste Pro is what that is. We have the revenue on one side, and then we have the expenditure for the amount that we have to pay the 90% back because we only get 10%. So that's what that number is.
What is the bad debt?
The bad debt is for the garbage services. If we have write-offs for bad debts, in garbage.
Uncollectible?
Yes.
Okay.
That's tied to property tax. It's interesting that we have that much, because it's gone up a little bit, but you would think at some point we would be able to collect, but I guess you can't carry it forward from one fiscal year to another.
That's actually an accounting adjustment, mostly. Yes, we have direct write-offs, but that also has to do with at year end, you actually have a liability, well, some allowance for doubtful accounts on the books, and that's the adjustment that makes that whole.
I see.
Waste Pro has also recently complained about with the COVID situation, there was a large increase in the quantity of the refuse that was being collected. And it has stabilized in July, but they are looking at the contract to see if there's any allowance within the contract for the higher quantity that they've been picking up since the COVID environment began.
That should be kind of balanced out with businesses that didn't have as much.
Right.
Well, that's correct. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. So, so far they haven't pushed anything specific, but they've made comments. Any questions on any of this stuff?
I just want to thank the staff for getting a good budget for us again this year. And I think the budget shows how well we spend the tax people's budget. I mean, that there's not a lot of bad in the budget, that we pretty well keep it lean. And I appreciate all the departments doing that, and city manager for getting it to where it's balanced when it comes to us like this. And so I appreciate it.
And I want to thank all the staff and directors. I know they put a lot of hard work into doing this. And what I also, again, I'm very thankful that this is in a more user-friendly format so that the average citizen can more easily understand what's going on.
This is the best it's ever been for me in 12 years. So I really appreciate it. Did a great job.
Save the best for last, Miss Moses.
You're gonna miss
you got it.
Ms. Moses, it's going to be a little strange not seeing your face anymore.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It's starting to hit me.
Yeah, we're going to miss you.
I'm guessing Tuesday night it probably hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
Okay, short-termer. But overall, I think this was a good budget, and I'm appreciative too of the hard work that our staff, our administrative staff, put into preparing this document for us. It was very friendly and readable, and I agree with Ms. Mosley. It was the best yet. And again, thank you very much.
You're welcome on behalf of all of our staff. So we'll be going to the public hearings on this then.
Yes.
September 9th will be at 6 p.m. We'll have the the trim budget hearing for adoption, and then the final one on September 21st at 6 o'clock for the budget hearings.
Okay.
All right, if that's all, then I appreciate everybody and another good job by everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Done.